Hello and welcome to the Segilola Salami show. This is the virtual cafe. I'm your host, Segilola Salami. Who's next, please? Who have I got?
Felicia Denise.
Hi, Felicia. How are you today?
I am well. How are you today?
I'm fabulous. It's been a nice, not sunny day, very cloudy day in London. It rained last night, but it's the little human's birthday this weekend, so I've spent the day doing lots of running around and trying to get birthday stuff ready because I have a plan. I don't know if I can execute it well, but I'm planning to make a nice two-layer pinata molten chocolate pinata Oreo cake.
Wow, I didn't know.
That's the
I
plan.
didn't know it was going to be two layers.
Yes, because again, I have to have the molten chocolate, so I need to have where to store all that molten goodness in, so that when it then you just cut it, it just you then get all the chocolate goodness just baptize your life. That's it. That's the plan.
I
I
am dying to see this cake.
When I can execute it is a totally different kettle of fish. I have a plan in my head. I've never done this before, but I have a plan in my head. My cakes themselves, they're good. I like it. Everybody seems to like my cakes, but to just sort of try and do this execution, it is to be seen. I think I have a plan because one of the problems that I was thinking is like everything is so mathematical with cake, and I don't know why people don't like maths and science, but everything is mathematical. I've been thinking to myself, right, if I'm going to do this, right, and in normal pinata cakes they put sweeties, like M&Ms and Maltesers and all of those things, right? But I want to
Yes,
put molten chocolate. So what I've been asking myself is, how do I do it so that when I put the cake has been packaged and it's all nice, how do I then make the inside of the cake to not get soggy?
exactly.
So
Exactly.
that is the problem that I'm trying to see how I can solve. And hopefully by the time, and who knows, it might be just so much chocolate goodness that no one's going to mind if it gets soggy. So
Exactly. Exactly. It's chocolate. Who cares?
yeah, so but that's what I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. So that's it. So what's on the menu for tomorrow? Well, I'm gonna start doing the cooking. So I'm gonna do the cake, and then put it in the fridge to cool down tomorrow. Then on Sunday, which is the actual birthday, I'm hoping to do like a coconut rice. Then I'm gonna do like roast chicken and roast turkey, all wings, because we like bony bits, and I was like, we don't like chicken legs and all the funky breast and whatnot. So it was like loads of roasted chicken wings and roasted turkey wings, coconut rice, and a nice pepper stew. And then afterwards, to the dessert would be the with the pinata cake. I was thinking of having. I was then going to make an Oreo parfait. But I'm thinking it's not a party. Like I just think I don't want to do a party this year because last year I did a massive party, and this year I'm thinking I don't want to do a party. I'm just going to have a couple of friends over for lunch, and I'm like, what? That's just going to give them too much goodness in their life. We should just dampen it down and not too much goodness. Um, so that's the plan for the little human's birthday. So today, I'm sorry, she's getting the day off. Yes, so she's had so much sugar in her life, so she's like, yeah, I'm sorry, mom, I'm not gonna take any orders today. So sorry. You're gonna have to give your order to me. So what would you like to drink today?
I would
There's no cake. So just pick your order.
just the standard American black coffee with two sugars.
Black coffee with two sugars. That's easy to do. Okay, would you like anything else with this, or are you just happy with your black coffee?
I'll just take the coffee today.
Okay, that's fine. Save me doing extra work, seeing as I have all this fabulous goodness to do in my life very soon. Yes, okay. So just to remind people, because again, not everybody comes to the Virtue Cafe very often. So if people who have not come across you before, can you just tell them what you do again?
I am a newly published author. My debut novel, In the Best Interest of the Child, a women's fiction psychological romance was published at the end of September, and it tackles the issues of foster care and child abuse and child abandonment and mental health.
Wow. Well, that sounds quite interesting. I mean, and you've been here, twice already, and this is the third episode, for this special episode that we're doing on child abuse. And I feel like I have a deep connection with Olivia. I almost feel like she's Olivia Pope. Or what's the other lady's name now? The one with How to Get Away with Murder. What's her name now? Oh, it's
Viola Davis.
Yes, that's it. When I'm thinking of her, I'm thinking, Olivia Pope, Viola Davis, those kind of women, just at the front of my head every time I think, oh, in the best interest of the child. I just think she's hardcore,
Yes,
right?
she is.
So like in the first episode, we talked about, how to identify, a child who is being abused. And I think one of the things, if I remember correctly, because again, I've got major baby brain, is that, you will see a change in behavior of a child. So maybe a child who's normally happy, and then all of a sudden, the child's withdrawn or stuff like that. You will see a change in behavior. And
Yes.
sort of, that's one of the telltale signs. I mean, it's not always, because there are certain exceptional circumstances, or the child will be defending the parent and always going, oh, I love my parents, sort of thing, almost trying to
Yes.
justify that because they love the parents love them. That's why
Yes.
they behave like that. And then, we talked about getting justice for a child. And, it's about, first of all, listening to the child and trying to figure out what it is that particular child, if it's when the child was a child, or if the child is now an adult, and sort of making sure that you listen to what exactly it is that that the child wants, or what it would make that child feel that they've gotten closure of what has happened to them. And one of the
Exactly.
guests that we had last week, one of the things that I thought was quite useful, is that as parents, if we wanted to prevent abuse. And I think it's more coming from Olivia, the Olivia in your book, where her parents, were in an accident and her dad died, but then her mom couldn't cope with the grief. But she then
Yes.
had to go into care because legally her friends were not able to take her in, because you
Exactly.
have all
Yes.
this paperwork and bureaucracy. And so what the guests from last week were saying was that if nobody knows for tomorrow, it's best to prepare for the worst and not need it than not
Yes.
prepare and then be in need of it. And I think it was Scarlett, she's from, and what's the word now, and I thought divorce was bad, or and I thought ladies, and she was
Yes.
saying that in Maryland, and I think that their law means that if you have a militarized letter saying what it is that you want, so you can have a friend. You can have a friend, take over, not take over, but look after your child if
Yes.
you're
Yes.
incapacitated.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes. Okay. So that, which is sort of like, I thought it would be good to summarize what we've talked about so far. For anyone who's not listened to any of the previous episodes. So today, catch up now. We've done so much. Now, so we talk about identifying, we've talked about getting to terms with what's happened. How do people then sort of grieve? It's sort of nice to find a way to come to terms with everything that's happened. And so, like, how did Olivia, so if we go through the 5 stages of grief, and if you just go and type in 5 stages of grief on Google, it says that the 5 stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And it says it's part of the framework that makes up our learning to live with the one we lost. He says there are tools to help us frame and identify what we may be feeling, but they are not stops on some linear timeline in grief. And that's totally true, because you can't put a timeline on
Exactly.
grief. Everybody deals with it in different ways. Some people, they suppress it and try not to come to terms with it, and I think that's where the whole denial comes in. So when Olivia was dealing with the stuff that she was dealing with, how did she, how did she show her denial? How did you show her coming doing denial of what's happened?
Well, it was easier for her in that respect because no one else ever acknowledged it. She
Yeah.
didn't even get the death of her father acknowledged. So she wasn't going to get the abuse acknowledged. The only caveat she got was that the abuser went to jail, but it still wasn't discussed. She still didn't receive any counseling or therapy. So it was easy for her to say it never happened and tuck it away in the back of her mind.
Right. Okay. But then when she got older, did she acknowledge it at least to herself?
She has acknowledged it, but at a 38 years old, Olivia has still only gone through the first 4 stages. She has not accepted it.
Right. Mm, 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 mm.
And that's where book 2 will go in because she has to forgive her mother and forgive herself.
Right. Okay. So, how do I mean, when you were writing the book, did you do any research, on the 5 stages of grief, especially the denials, to make it more plausible to the reader?
Yes, yes, and I have friends who are in foster care and have adopted children, and they talk to me and share their experiences and their feelings with me. So the emotions that I was writing came from real people.
Mm-mm. Okay, so how did they give you an example of how you can see someone who is in denial? Because sometimes if you meet someone, you might not necessarily know that they're in denial. How do you find, cases of denial exhibited?
One girl who is now about 27 years old went through it when she was 16, and she said her problem was she was perky and happy and always trying to make people laugh so that she
Yeah.
didn't think about the darkness that had happened to her. And
Mm-mm.
and she wouldn't watch horror movies. She wouldn't, go out to a Halloween party. She wouldn't do anything that had darkness addressed to it because it took her back to her abuse. So
Mm.
she was like everybody's favorite cheerleader.
Right. So I guess then that brings us to this saying that I'd sort of heard once, that sometimes the people who we see that seem to be the happiest, the most helpful, the most, oh my God, I want to be everything that this person is. Sometimes, they're doing all of these things to help them forget
Exactly.
what.
Exactly. Because when I first met this young woman, the last thing I would have thought is that she was abused
Mm,
because she seemed so normal and focused and just not carrying that kind of darkness inside her. And
yes.
she was in denial for 8 years.
Wow. That is a really long time. Like you never can, can tell what anybody is going through. So what was it that made, brought her into the limelight of what has gone? Was it something that she then intentionally said, you know what, I'm going to find, did she burst out? Like, did she then go through it, the typical way from denial to anger to bargaining and then depression? Like, did she go through those stages in that format? Like, how did it then come out?
She
Hello?
she tried to commit suicide.
Oh dear.
That was her wake up call. And she said when we talked about it, she said subconsciously she didn't want to die. She was trying to wipe the memories away. And she had a friend who had also been abused, and she had gotten into the cutting, the self-harm. But she said she could never bring herself to do that. But she said it was started to weigh so heavily upon her that she thought the only way to end the memories and all the voices in her head was to take her own life.
Wow. was in my 20s, right? And I think, I was maybe I had a more sheltered life. And, I'm just thankful just for myself that I think now that I'm in my 30s, I feel like I've grown, sort of in my empathy and my understanding of things. Because I think sometimes people who come across as not being empathetic is just because they don't really understand something. And I will
Yes,
guess
exactly.
that the thoughts that I had in my 20s, a lot of other people possibly had it, right?
Yes, yes.
Because I remember that in my 20s, I didn't understand why people attempted to kill themselves. I
Mm-hmm.
always used to think that, well, if you're trying to kill yourself, why don't you just kill yourself and get it over it? Why do you have to, like when people go and jump in front of a train station and then, quote unquote,
Yes,
and this is the Londoner in me, say, why do you have to inconvenience everybody else with your death, right? Why couldn't you
yes.
just do it, when nobody else was around? Why did you have to do it in rush hour? That sort of thing. Or someone who, tries to take medication and then starts screaming, oh, my tummy, my tummy. I'm like, so I asked the doctor this and I'm like, okay, right. If someone wants to then end their life, right, why don't you just let them end their life,
Yes.
right? Because again, for me, I did not understand this because and I wasn't asking the question because I was a know-it-all. I literally just wanted to understand it. And this doctor was actually very, very kind enough to me to explain. And she said that it was a cry for help, that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes
Mm-hmm.
who do that, they possibly feel that the people around them are not listening. And so
Yes.
it's their cry for help. And that's why, medics then do, come in to say, 'cause this person might feel they've done absolutely everything, um, and they're not making progress. And I guess, now when you're saying this, it then sort of then puts into context everything the doctor then said to me, because if she's trying to wipe away from her mind everything that's happened, and she feels that trying to kill herself is the only way she can do that, it then actually makes sense, I think.
Yes.
What do you think?
Yes. Of course. I can't imagine being in that position, thank God.
Yeah.
But the darkness is just so heavy. I mean, another girl who was in the same foster home went from being the studious, straight A, conservative student to being sexually promiscuous.
Wow.
And that was her. She was molested by her father. So her way of denying what he was doing to her was wrong was blaming
Mm,
herself and acting out in that same behavior.
yeah. Yeah. I'm just like, it's just sometimes, when you have all these things, your brain is just what's the word I'm looking for? It's overwhelming.
Exactly. And there are no easy fixes, there are no easy explanations or answers.
Mm,
It takes time and it takes discussion from
yes.
everyone.
Mm. Yes, no, it does, it does. Okay, so now let's say, for instance, you have someone who is in denial. How would you help that person? How would you help that person to sort of come to terms so that we can then progress, to the next bit?
I would try just to build trust with them to let them know that I was someone who was listening, someone who did care, and they could talk to me. Because to get away from denial, you've got to admit it.
Yes.
And they're not just going to sit down and have a conversation with someone and just start talking, which is why I have a problem when they throw some kids into counseling at such a young age or in their tween years and think they're just going to tell the whole story. Kids, children, adults, we have to build trust.
Yes. 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 And I think
because
it's sometimes, no, go on, sorry.
because so often the people who abuse them were someone they trusted.
Yes.
So it
Yes,
will
no,
take
definitely.
time. It will take time.
Hmm. No, definitely. I can totally imagine that. And sort of saying that, it reminds me of, and then again, I hope no one's going to shoot me for saying this. Like when, you've had like an abused animal or stuff, and then you put loads of sweet treats. them to you, but then you're far away, and you sort of say, well, take your time, eat what you want. When you're ready, you will come close to me. When you see that, and then you sit away, and then you're like, okay, you're over there. Here are my treats. I'm sitting here. When you're ready, you come to me. I'm not going anywhere. And it's not something that would just happen instantaneously. They just sort of study you, take a step closer, study you, till eventually they might think, oh, actually, this person seems like, like they're genuine and they're not going anywhere. And so they then choose to stay.
Yes.
Wow. Just give me 2 seconds to just clear my throat because it's been tickling. Hello?
Yes.
Yes, I have 2 seconds to clear my throat, so I don't want to start coughing over the recording.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just the weather here. It's gone all gloomy and stuff. And so because I've been out getting ready for that thing this weekend, I think the cold has gone to my throat and my nose. But right, okay, cool. So so can you tell us about a scene in the book when Olivia was exhibiting her denial? What was your favorite part, for her to express her denial?
My favorite part. I think it was when she was asked in college, she was asked to join a sorority, and
Okay.
she would not join the sorority because she did not want to be involved in the girl chats and the girls' night out or whatnot with everybody talking about their past lives
Mm,
because she didn't want to discuss her past.
yes. Wow. So did she not then do any of the social things girls her age did?
No, none, none. Olivia studied and worked, and that was what her young life was. She was not social at all.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So no socializing. That just seems, definitely quite an intense life, and I can just imagine, but then, okay, so what sort of problem? I mean, we don't have our expert today, Alan. I think he had some appointments to attend to. But in America, now let's say we've got someone, they've identified, that a child's been abused. They've worked out, sort of to find the way to get, justice for a child. What sort of support is there, for the child, that's been abused? To get help. I mean, I know you talked about counselors, but obviously the child is not immediately. So what are the different support opportunities there are in America?
Going on the states that I've lived in, it's still a very, very hard area because, like I said, a lot of times the child has been abused by someone they know, they trust, or they're related to. And a
Yeah.
lot of times, and I don't agree with this, maybe it's one of the parents and they may attempt to remove the parent from the home, but leave the child in the home. And
Yeah.
I agree with trying to keep normalcy in the child's home, but at the same token, when this is still in the new stages, the child is still seen as the villain.
Mm.
And it's very hard for that child to go on when maybe that missing parent or family member is gone because of what that child said. So
Mm.
that leaves that child to not talk.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Yes. Yes.
finding a support network for children like that is difficult. And like I said last week, in the system that we have, a lot of things hinges on funding. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, when you have budget cuts, some of the first programs that are cut involve children.
Yes. Yes.
So there might be, a waiting list for them to get counseling, if there's a list at all, or they might be in group counseling where they're not subject to be as open. So it's
Yeah.
having a strong support network can be hard.
Yes. Yes, 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 I guess. So I guess, from what we were talking about last week, it would then be better, so for parents, that are able to and do have a support network to sort of make arrangements that in case of emergency, in case something happens, because again, we don't plan for anything bad to happen to us, but sadly that's part and parcel of life and anything can happen. So I guess it would be a sensible thing to do, to sort of say, well, in case of emergency, in case anything happened, this is the person that I would like to look after my child and speak to that person. Because I did share the podcast with a couple of friends, and they actually said to me that they have assumptions that their family would step up, but now just listening to this is actually making them think.
Yes. It's not a
Uh,
given. And like I said, it's always blood family first, but in a situation of an abused child, you have to take everything into account. You want to
yes,
put that child in a safe, loving environment where they trust. You can't put that child into an environment where they're still perceived as doing something wrong, because
yes,
they're not going to open up and they're not going to heal.
no,
So even
no,
even if
no,
it is a family member or a close friend who has legal documents, if they're still siding with that family member, if they're still questioning what this child is saying and not totally supportive, you still haven't helped the child.
yes, yes, yes. Whew. Wow. Well, this is quite intense. Um, do you know of any alternative therapies at all, other than counseling and sitting down?
Actually, I do not. I could probably solve many, many problems in this country if I did. But actually, I do not. Although, one thing that I worked with in the past as a volunteer and some of my foster families approve of is camping.
Okay.
And not so much as just, going on a camping trip, la la la, but saying a week, a 2 week, a summer out in nature, doing activities, and with other kids who have gone through similar things,
Yeah.
connects the child back, brings the child back. And like I
Hmm.
said, it may not be the cure all, it's not going to heal them, but it gives them the freedom to be who they are.
Yes.
Now, this is harder, when these realizations come out during the adult years, because you
Yeah.
still have to work and, have obligations and maybe take care of family or whatnot. So it's a more difficult in that aspect. But for children, you've got to allow them to still be children,
Yes.
because the problem is they've been treated, they've been objectified as sex objects, and they haven't been allowed to be children.
Yes. So what about if it's when the child, all of this comes to light when the child is now an adult?
Whoa. One thing with for Olivia and what she is striving for now is not just acknowledgement,
Yeah.
but an explanation.
Yes.
She needs to know why.
Yes. But then sometimes, and I can't remember if it was you who said it or if it was someone else who said it, is that kind of like bullies. If you sort of go through the tree of life, and say look deep into the bully's life, you will find that sometimes that bully is being bullied.
Yes.
So I think the same thing applies to sexual predators. That sometimes if you look back to their life, they were possibly abused as well, and so they don't know how to be different.
I don't think I'll let them off that easy. I won't say they don't know how. I think it's a mindset. And because
Right.
I do believe they know right from wrong, and I
Yeah.
know they go through all these people who've been incarcerated and have committed all these heinous crimes, and they find that abuse was did happen early in childhood, but I can't say that it could be part of the problem, but I can't let them off and say it's the reason because you still know right from wrong.
Yes.
I still think it's a choice.
Yeah. Hmm. 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 So my brain cells just all over the place. Because seriously, you're definitely, correct. But then it's sort of kind of because like when I first heard about it, that sometimes these abusers were abused, and then it then sort of puts you in a 50-50 situation, right? That you would think someone who was abused would not want that abuse to happen to someone else again, so they would do
Exactly.
everything to prevent it from happening, kind of like Olivia, right? But then you will
Exactly.
have those people on the other fence who will say, "Well, I was abused, so I have to abuse someone else."
Exactly. And I don't believe that. I'm not a professional or an expert, but I just refuse to believe that because you know right from wrong when your objective is not to be caught. If you don't want to be caught, you know you're doing something wrong.
Yes. That's very true. That's very true. But it's never very easy. Because
No.
I'm just trying to think now. Because I was reading something the other day, about sort of how a lot of people that they might have, especially those who their abuse of took place for several years, kind of like Olivia. And they some people then end up having PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. um and I think I read somewhere that someone, sometimes, the stress would be, the abuse would be so extreme, fragments. And I
Oh
think one of the
yes.
terms they call it now is dissociative identity disorder. And
Yes.
literally, they can't cope anymore. And so, they mind fragment so that there is a different persona to deal with different
Yes.
aspects of life. And I'm just sort of trying to think, well, how does then that person who is now fragmented, how does that person start coping to sort of go through the whole denial, aggression, acceptance, the whole 5 stages to then try to make themselves whole again.
But I believe someone with that disorder can't hide it, and they
Oh,
are easy to.
they are very, oh my good Lord, seriously, that one I know for sure they can hide it. Because I was having a conversation with another lady, and I just think when I talk about it, it seems like I always have loads of, conversations with loads of people and whatnot. But I was having a conversation with a lady. I used to work with her, and she was saying to me that she was dating. So when she broke up with her ex-husband, this was many, many years ago, she started dating this guy, right? And she had a baby with her ex-husband. And she was dating this guy, and he was everything. He was accepted. He was like, "Yes, I will be dad to your child," and everything, right? And then one day, he just wakes up and chucks her out and says, "Look, I don't want to be with you anymore," right? And she couldn't understand it, right? And then years later, he then turns around and says, "Oh, I'm really sorry about that." And then he explains that I have this dissociative disorder and that the person who had chucked her out was not him.
And she never saw any warning signs.
Not at all.
And I ask because I am very, very close to a person who has that disorder.
Okay.
And I saw it years ago, and it still happens today. And she has been on medication for years. And the problem is, she'll take her medication for so long and believe that she's better, she doesn't need it anymore, and she'll stop taking the medication. The
Interesting.
medication does help, but she'll take it 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and she's feeling better, living life, going on, and well, I don't need this medication anymore, and she will stop. And then the dissociative behavior comes back.
Interesting. No, it's actually quite interesting that. Sorry, go on.
That's why I asked that was there any warning sign? She saw nothing, and there could have been something that she may have taken as him having a bad day, or not feeling well, or maybe he had an argument with someone else.
Yeah, possibly,
Be-
possibly.
because with this person, it may have been a few months, but me and several others said something's going on because it was
Mm.
so out of character for her.
Yes, I guess especially if you're really, really close to the person, then they can
Yes,
only hide it for so long. Um,
yes,
but then if you're kind of like maybe you're not living together and you only speak over the phone, or stuff that puts a bit of distance, then it might be a
yes,
little bit harder to identify.
yes, just someone you work with or go to school with, you're not going to be as keyed in. Because we do, add a lot of things up and say, oh well, they're just having a bad day. They got up on the wrong side of the bed.
I wake up on the wrong side of the bed most time. My family, they just ignore me. They just go, yeah, it's that time of the month. Don't they just take the phone off the hook and like, yes, and then they go.
Exactly, exactly. And it could be signs of something else. I'm not saying it is, but you
Yeah.
never know. You got to take who that person is totally to try to figure it out. And that's what we did with this person that I know. It was so out of character with her, and it wasn't a regular thing. And it just
Mm,
depends on what that person's triggers are.
yes. So sometimes I guess a lot of time they can't deal with stress. And
Yes.
so when they're stressed, that's a big trigger for them.
And see, with Olivia in the book, Olivia's trigger is thunderstorms because she was afraid of thunderstorms as a child, and her father would comfort her and explain storms to her, and also her mother, because
Mm,
she has a meltdown in the book at the mere mention of her mother.
right. That's quite
And the
interesting.
rest of
No,
the time you see her, she's a fantastic attorney, fighting for children in court.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So another question. I mean, I know that you mentioned about medication. And when I was reading up about dissociative identity disorder, they said that, there really isn't medication per se, to sort of try and make someone whole. That what you would see mostly would be, if they were told they're prescribing any medication, would be to treat symptoms. So, for instance, if one of the side effects of the dissociation is depression, then they would give the person medication for depression.
Exactly, exactly.
Right. Okay, that's fine. Because I wasn't sure if you meant treatment for the dissociation
No,
or
no,
if
no.
you're quoting something.
No, it's to treat the mind. It's to keep them calm. So if they,
Yes.
come in contact with their triggers, it doesn't send them off into an episode.
Yes. That makes total perfect sense to me now. Because I was like, treatment. I hadn't read up. I hadn't come across anything about treatment, because I think it's one of those things where the person as an individual needs to go through all the stages and then say,
Yes,
you know what, okay, this happened. I accept that it happened. It's not my fault. There's nothing I can do, to change it. I'm just going to sort of move on with my life and not let it affect me. And it takes it takes length, different lengths of time. And I guess, and again, all these things I'm saying is just sort of guesswork. It's kind of like people who have an addiction, for instance, because sometimes, like, I used to know this guy who used to smoke, and he hid it from me. And then, when I did find out, he was like, "Yeah, I just chose to not smoke in front of you." But he said, "You know what? This is my last stick that you're saying, and I will never smoke again." And God understood. I did ask him later, and he was like, "No, no, I haven't had a smoke." But then later comes and like, "Oh yeah, I was having a bad day one day, and I just chose to have one." But I think sometimes people make that intentional choice, because I then did know someone else who used to smoke, and he was like, "Oh, can you support me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can't do that, because deep down you need to want to not want to smoke." Because if
Exactly.
you don't want to smoke, if you don't want to stop smoking, no matter what support anybody else gives to you, you're going to keep relapsing. But if you
Exactly.
decide, you know what, this, I don't want to do this anymore, deep down inside of you, in your heart, where nobody else can see, just you and your God, and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, you will find that it's easier to stop.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's got to come from inside.
Yes. And so that's why I just think that medications, for that deep acceptance, medication can't actually do that. It's something that a person has to make that decision by themselves. Right. Okay. Well, that sounds good. Right. So tell us again now. I know you've been hinting about a second book. When is that coming out?
That will be out in January. And that it
Hmm.
will be in the best interest of the child, family matters. And it's going to
Ooh.
deal with Olivia in counseling. Olivia, is she going to confront her mother? She has to make a decision to accept this before she can move on with the rest of her life. And remember, she's 38.
Yes, and I remember last week you talked about some hottie as well.
Yes, Bruce Bellamy. Ooh.
Since you told mentioned him, I'm like, well, will there be some sizzling action? I want to see some sizzling action.
This is the very, very first time she has ever been in love because she's had sexual relationships in her life, but they were just sex only. There was no emotion, no feeling, and she never let a man get that close.
Mm. So this time, is there going to be some sizzling action? I want some sizzling action.
There's going to be more that was in the first book, but I didn't want to fill the book up with bedroom scenes because that wasn't what the focus was. But
I know.
now that she's in this relationship, she can have the relationship as she tries to move forward. The relationship
Yes.
the relationship helps her because she trusts. She has not
Yeah.
trusted for so long, but now she's found someone that she trusts and who
Yeah.
sees her for who she is.
And I hope he's not going to break her trust.
No, no, he's not going to break her trust.
That's all right, but I'm looking forward to some sizzling action. Some sizzling action is needed. Because it's been quite sad and everything that's happened. And, sometimes when you have something good in your life, you're like, yes, booyah! It's about time we had some perfection, and it's like, ooh.
And that's what Olivia. That's what she believes. She's on the road to normalcy.
Yes.
But she's not quite there, and she wants to move the obstacles out of her way so she can just be free.
Yes. But then how can she confront her mom who's still dealing with grief? What, 20 years later?
It's almost 30 years later, and the thing with complicated grief disorder is it's another disorder that has no time limit. You can't say they'll deal with it for 6 months or 7 months or 8 months. It's usually identified in someone who grieves for over 6 months and also has other issues. And if they have health issues or physical disabilities, they can worsen. And they've even connected it, with some types of cancer.
Oh, wow.
Not saying that it causes cancer, but it
Mm,
complicates other issues.
wow.
And you will find out that Serena Chandler, Olivia's mother, her complicated grief disorder was triggered by her husband's death, but she had an earlier episode of her own as a child that made it worse.
Yeah.
So she's dealing with two things at once, and that's why she retreats into her mind.
Yes, yes, I can see that now. Um, yes, and the little humans, she's had lots of sugar today whilst we were out food shopping. Can you hear her? So she's
Yeah,
saying
she's
stuff.
happy. She's
Yes,
happy.
that's what sugar does. Yes, we've had lots of juice and lots of Oreos because we love Oreos. I think Oreo cookies should come and endorse me because I think, we talk about Oreo cookies all the time. We love Oreos, Oreo cake, Oreo cookies, Oreo everything. Oreo makes the world go round and round and round. That's it.
Then I'm not a fan of Oreos.
Really?
Nope.
What do you fan of then?
Chips Ahoy chocolate chip cookies.
Chips Ahoy. Do I know that one? Do I know that one? No, see, I just blank out all the other ones. I just go straight for the Oreos. Well, I'll have to look out for those ones. Why do you like them?
I like the texture. I like the chocolate chips. Oreos they don't do anything for me. My daughter loves them and she will buy them in double stuff and flavors and everything else. But they're just not a big thing for me.
Interesting. See, when I was pregnant, I used to have like if you go to KFC, they do this what is it called now? It's almost like a frozen, with ice. Crushums, that's it. So they do crushums and they have like the Oreo flavor, then they have the Maltesers one. And I was just having them at nighttime. I was just drinking them like I was having hot chocolate. It was just really nice. And especially as it was summertime when we had a little bit of sun, they just sort of passed through your throat and it was like, oh. That's the best of sliced bread. No, seriously, but I just think we should go and try and get rid of all the sweetness in our bloodstream now and get some proper food. What time is it there? And I always forget because
It
it's almost
is
5:30
just
here.
10:30 in the morning, Friday.
Cool. So what is for lunch?
I have my 2-year-old grandnephew Jordan with us again, and Jordan got up late and he still hasn't had breakfast. So
Oh,
he's running around terrorizing the dog and my husband. So we will get him settled down and give him some breakfast. And he loves oatmeal.
that's nice. Little human, do we like oatmeal? No, we like nana, banana, and we like grapes and stuff like that. And we like eggs. We like loads and loads of eggs. You can have eggs Monday to Friday, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We love eggs.
Jordan will only eat eggs if it's with rice. This kid, he is the king of rice.
Interesting. Interesting. That's nice. Well, how do you make your rice?
I make a white rice and then I make a broth, either a chicken broth or a beef broth.
Okay.
That's how he likes it.
Oh, cool. That's nice. But anyways, well, I'm going to let you go sort out late breakfast, and we're going to sort out late lunch, brunch, whatever we'll call it. So for those who don't know, how do they get in touch with you if they need to?
You can reach me at Felicia Denise, FeliciaAdenise at FeliciaD.com or through my website at FeliciaDenise.com.
Perfect. Are you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter at Ms. Felicia, MsFelicia.
Perfect. It's an absolute honor having you on the show, and hopefully we'll catch you again next week. Yes, 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 yes.
It's the day after Thanksgiving, so I'm gonna have company. We'll see what happens. I will let you know.
It will be great if we can have you, but if not, it's been an absolute pleasure. And hopefully we'll see you again soon, if not next week, then possibly the week after.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, then, well, have a good evening.
You guys have a great party this weekend.
Thank you very much. I will share pictures with you of my cake if I do deliver.
I want to see it regardless. I want to see the chocolate.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, then, take care now.
You too.
Bye.